Hello and welcome to another episode of Songwriting Idiots, the podcast where every month we take a different musical genre and topic decided by you, the listener, and we see what happens. And I'm here today with Ralph in person once again. How are you doing, Ralph?
I'm doing pretty well. We are here in the countryside of my home region of Carinthia in the south of Austria. I've never been to this place. It's very nice. If you want to see some photos, we are here on a band retreat and post some on Instagram maybe later. We'll see.
We are totally isolated up here, which is great.
It is good. We smell bad.
We smell terrible. We have some kind of hot water every now and again when we chop logs and put them in the fire.
Is it just me? I hope it's the same for you. It's the first time in my life in 32 years that I feel like a man.
Oh, absolutely. When you get the fire going, and then that all gets crushed when after about 5 minutes it goes out again.
Because we realize we're not men.
In any way.
It's the worst.
I'm having a great time here. I mean, we are really totally isolated, and creatively speaking, it's fantastic. And we're here with Nicole and Julia, our two other band members, writing songs, recording songs, being creative, wonderful views, hikes, runs, physical exercise. What more could you want?
Beer, maybe.
Which we also have. Very, very important.
I've realised.
Anyway, it's a great location to do our podcast from. Probably the most scenic place we've ever done a podcast from.
I would say so, yeah. I mean, you can barely see it. You have a massive screen in front of you right next to blocking your view to the window. But I find it really nice.
But I can see you, Ralph.
And that's all that matters.
And that's all I need.
That's all that matters. So, as you hopefully are aware, or as you have read in the episode title, this month is all about hip-hop, but let's first hear what we came up last month, when we were asked by you to each write a song in the style of Italo dance, techno, disco. One of those things, and it sounded a little bit like this.
So that was Italo dance techno, a genre that I knew absolutely nothing about, as you can probably tell.
Some listeners have told us so, yeah. But I think you did pretty well. With something you have never heard before.
And that leads us nicely onto the genre of this month. Also something that I don't know that much about, but actually I found a pretty cool genre. This month's genre is German hip-hop.
Yeah.
German rap.
Very broadly speaking.
Yeah, broadly speaking. And we had to write a German hip-hop rap song about the UK's response to the COVID pandemic. So let's start off with the genre, German hip-hop or hip-hop generally.
So, Dan, I'm sure you are aware of hip-hop.
I have heard it.
Heard of it. Good. You know of it. You were aware that there's German hip-hop, I assume.
Kind of. I knew that there were people singing in German over things that sounded like hip-hop.
Did you know any artists or songs before going into this?
None at all.
Good, that's great. So, shall we maybe go into a little bit of a history of what German hip-hop is all about, when it started? And maybe also start with a broad overview of hip-hop itself.
Yeah, so hip-hop itself came about in the kind of 1970s in the Bronx in New York. And I think this is so cool. It was basically focused on essentially emceeing over house parties and like community parties. How much fun does that sound?
That sounds like a great job.
Just having these huge parties in the streets and there's just people just rapping and emceeing over this music. Awesome.
Really cool. Yeah.
And it's what I love about hip-hop is it's not just music, right? There's a whole kind of cultural thing behind it. And hip-hop includes DJing, it includes graffiti,
sure.
It includes beatboxing, it includes breakdancing. Obviously, you've got rapping and MCing. It's not just the music. There's kind of this whole cultural thing around it, which I think is fascinating.
And it's in many ways, could you say that a continuation or just, a new step in this development that we talked about a lot when we did Motown, right? It's this concept, this broad idea of like Black American music that has always been a very a force of change in American culture in general, right? They've always driven most stylistic changes. Most genres are coming from that area, right? And hip hop, obviously, in the last, let's say, 20 years, was the defining musical genre in the US, and increasingly so over here.
Yep.
I mean, now definitely, if you listen to the charts, but it's been around for more than 40 years. So this is not, this is probably the biggest genre we are ever going to make, because nothing at this moment in time is bigger than hip hop.
Correct. Agreed. Yeah. So that was the 70s in the Bronx, and then I don't know what happened in the 80s. Ralph, do you have any idea what happened in the 80s with hip hop?
Well, I guess obviously in the kind of continuing, obviously the US was for a long time, and still is today, let's be honest, the main place where hip hop is made and hip hop is kind of moved forward. And there was a lot going on in the 80s, of course. Old school rap, you can listen to all of that. I guess NWA was still in the 80s, maybe that was
90s.
early 90s. You had Grandmaster Flash, I guess, was the first massive star there, and a lot going on. And I guess there was already quite some professionalization going on, and also sales were going up, I assume. Commercialization, really. And that's also the moment when it kind of came over to Germany. So it took a while, but in the mid-80s, and I guess that's exactly the moment when it became more commercial, more accessible as well, right? Because back in the days, you didn't have internet. I don't know how anything worked. So I guess you had like fanzines and stuff.
I think people had to like send, bootleg copies of everything to everywhere. Yeah. That's how music worked.
And then you had like fanzines, right? Where you were talking about new bands and new artists. And so things were moving slowly, and you needed a certain, movement to actually be recognized somewhere else. And that took a while. But we can really say like in the mid-80s, it started getting some traction here. And interestingly, the early German rappers and hip-hop artists, they all sing in English. So it was very unusual and basically frowned upon to rap in German.
So the German-speaking artists based in Germany were singing still in English?
In the 80s, yeah.
Right.
So that was a completely normal thing. And that only changed in the late 80s with one of the biggest bands still, Die Fantastischen Vier. Fanta Vier, they're called. They are a group of middle-class dudes from Stuttgart, one of the wealthiest towns of Germany. So really not your stereotypical hip-hoppers.
A prime breeding ground for hip-hop, right?
Really not. Car City. Mercedes-Benz is based there. So not really.
Graffiti everywhere, I'm sure.
But they started rapping in German, and they also changed the game quite a bit, because obviously US hip-hop was very political in the 80s and later on, and it still is in many ways. And also mid-80s German hip-hop was very political, and they broke with that and made these kind of fun tracks, maybe something. Eminem, I guess, did that later in the US. So they really started this, and in the 90s, this thing really got rolling. So more and more bands started to rap in German. Also, this fun hip-hop thing got really big in the 90s. So there were bands like Fettes Brot, which are still very famous today, starting in the early 90s, and a load of people from Hamburg. So Hamburg was the place.
Interesting. I wonder why.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Hamburg is, musically speaking, quite an important place in Germany in general. Yep. I mean, it starts with the Beatles, obviously. Yep. But also then in indie rock music, it's very famous. There's a thing called Hamburger Schule, the Hamburg School of alternative music, like a group of bands that were massive in the 90s and early 2000s. So that's a thing going on, yeah. To this day, actually.
Sure.
And from there, we really have a movement into this. It really followed the US in many ways. So we then move into like gangster rap.
In the 90s, right? When
late 90s,
like
probably.
NWA coming out in the US, and then,
that was even earlier, yeah, sure.
And then Straight Outta Compton. Great album that was. Wow. So what was the equivalent in German hip hop, would you say?
So I guess I have to say, I was never really much into hip hop. So all I'm going to tell you now is basically stuff I read online. Yeah. But let's assume. So one person that I also knew back in the 90s who started this thing was Kool Savas. I think that's how I pronounce it. Or KKS, King Kool Savas. He was around since the mid 90s, probably, maybe even earlier. And he started this kind of battle rap thing, like really big. So there were actual contests, so like where people were shouting diss tracks at each other, and
basically 8 Mile.
Yeah, basically, yeah, exactly, yeah. And and that kind of was the breeding ground for German gangster rap, I'd say. And the biggest gangster rapper later on the two biggest were Sido and Bushido. And they were really defining artists of the 2000s. So they were everywhere. And only recently, really, have we seen a move away from this. Maybe it's in the last 10 years or so, when hip-hop changed a lot everywhere.
Yeah.
Like trap.
Yeah.
Trap happened.
It's just an extension of the commercialization, I think. All pop artists seem to have, well, not all pop artists, of course, but many pop artists seem to, have stolen elements of hip hop into their kind of pop songs, and that's not without controversy, right?
Of course not.
Yeah, because it's some people say this is appropriation, right?
There's always a case to be made if you want to, right?
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Sure.
And I mean, from the US perspective, obviously, in the last 10 years, Kanye West, Jay-Z, Eminem, so many great songs, so many big artists, and they're all essentially hip hop.
Yeah, now that's completely normal.
Yeah.
And I would say that now the scene or the sound maybe in the US and in Germany is quite similar.
It's aligned, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite aligned. In the past, maybe if we're looking back at the last 30 years of German hip hop, Germany was always like maybe 5 years behind the US easily, right? So they were late to the gangster rap game, they were late to the trap game. But now I would say it's very similar. And now in Germany, we have mostly trap-based hip-hop, and it's very strongly influenced by different migrant communities. That's something that at the beginning, all the 90s bands were basically your average potato German. And now it's very strongly influenced by, also words coming into the music from Arabic or from Slavic languages and all other minority groups that are in Germany. And it's all now very strongly based around that mentality and also about life in Berlin, and it's really all about Berlin these days. So I think that was a very long history of German hip hop.
Yeah, it's a big thing, right?
It's a big deal.
Yeah, you can't really leave anything out of that because you've got to talk about the US at the same time as
exactly.
Yeah.
And it is the music of our time. When we grew up, I always thought that rock was the music of our time, but it's really the music of our father's time.
Yeah,
we just kind of as late 80s kids still grew up believing that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. and that was on the radio when we were growing up, and then this has just become hip hop totally. Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
Agreed.
So.
Well, on that note, let's see how we did with our hip hop songs. Before we move on, a quick word on the lyrical topic of the UK's response to the COVID pandemic.
Oh yeah, please. We always forget to talk about the topic.
Yeah. So in case it's not bleedingly obvious, I'm from the UK.
It is bleedingly obvious.
For those of you who may be not aware of what the UK's COVID response was, or the response to the COVID pandemic wasn't great. Was very late. Not much going on, and now, of course, all across the world we're seeing second waves, and it's all a bit miserable, isn't it? But of course, in the UK we have a very interesting character in charge, shall we say, Mr. Boris Johnson, who may or may not make an appearance in some of our songs. We will have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. So, without further ado, let's see how we did with our Deutsch rap songs.
So, as usual, before we go to the songs, we're listening to music. One way to enjoy it even more, or to make the horrible more bearable, we like to enjoy beer. And since we're here together, we enjoyed one or two in the last couple of days. This one in particular is a Murauer. From not too far from here in the south of Austria. Not a bad beer, I would say.
This is an excellent beer.
And here we go.
And, here we go. Unfortunately, we have the world's worst bottle opener here as well.
Well, that is a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
It always has been, yeah. Oh, well. Let's see if I can do this.
They call him One Take Ralph. Here we are. Yeah, he's got it.
And he do it for a reason.
He couldn't do it the last 3 days, but here he is. First time. Very nice. Cheers. So, Ralph, this month, you're up first.
And as usual, I'm anxious. Going first is never easy. Not against you. We're not going against each other. But no. it feels a little bit like it. Yeah, so the idea for my song originally was I wanted to go modern. So I was like, okay, I want to do like a little...
Which is not usual for you.
It's usually the other way around.
Usually the other way around,
I mean, I'm not... Yeah, but usually I tend to always go old school. That's kind of my thing. But I thought, my first instinct was to just put on some random beat and do some 90s, like Fantastische Vier style rapping. But then I got into the current music that's out there, right? I listened to some Capital Bra, who is like by far the most important artist right now. I was like, yeah, that's actually quite cool. And I never really listened to it all that much, so I wanted to do that. Then I quickly talked to you, and you were also thinking about going modern. And then I said, okay, so maybe I'll do something else. And I did a cloud rap song.
Interesting. I've no idea what cloud rap is, and I can't wait to hear it. What's it called before we start?
The name of the song is Was hast angestellt? And it's in Viennese.
Excellent.
Are you ready?
I hope I understand it.
Here we go.
Kein Genierer, du bist so ein Verlierer. Keine Ahnung, was sagst, keine Ahnung, was machst. Ich mein, schau dich um, ich frag mich, warum einer dich wählen tät. Was hast du angestellt? Gelbes Haar und nix dahinter. Komm zu mir nach Wien da. Ich kann dir zeigen, wie es geht. Bratte, sicher. Ich bin der Patron. Jedem die Matte. Aber das weißt du sicher schon, denn in der City hab ich für dich alles vorbereitet, komm vorbei. Und Stress nicht. Kein Genierer, du bist so ein Verlierer. Keine Ahnung, was sagst, keine Ahnung, was machst. Ich mein, schau dich um, ich frag mich, warum einer dich wählen tät. Was hast du angestellt? Meine Girls mit der Louis V auf der Mahü. Die wissen gar nicht, wer du bist. Also sei still, setz dich wieder hin. Weil du musst eins verstehen, wenn ich ganz ehrlich bin, dass du Style hast, glaubt hier keiner. Brr, brr, Ratte, war nur Spaß. Schleich dich heim, Mann. Schleich dich heim, Mann.
So I think I recognised something in that song.
You might have.
There was something that sounded a little familiar to me.
Yeah, there is a worse version of this thing around, yes. I couldn't help it. I had to sample your reggaeton song.
So for those of you who've not listened to our reggaeton episode yet, the kind of loop that you hear going through Ralph's song is a absolutely destroyed version of my reggaeton song, Soy Abogado. What did you do with it?
Oh, I fucked it right up.
Yes, you did, sir.
So,
but in a good way, actually.
Well, hopefully.
It turned out very nicely.
Actually, I was a bit lazy because once I decided to do cloud rap, I watched some videos on YouTube about cloud rap, and everyone told me, just whatever you do, don't spend too much time with it. So just get it done. And I found a video, 3 minutes long, of a guy getting any song or some song into his digital audio workstation, and he did 4 things, and I did the same thing. So he stretched it out to make it slower. He then pitched it down by at least an octave. He then spread it hard left and right.
Okay, in
so
the speakers.
Exactly, in the speaker, so it's coming from all directions. And then he adds loads of reverb and like echo to it, and that's all I did to your track. That's basically it. It's like 75% your speed. So it's quite a bit slower.
Yeah.
It's an octave lower.
Yeah.
It's coming from everywhere, and it's a lot of echo on there.
Yeah, so it sounds really cool, though. And I think we have to start calling you the Auto-Tune King.
I do find it quite enjoyable.
Yeah,
I do enjoy it.
I mean, those notes at the beginning. There's a very clear auto-tune section, right? Which, I mean, would you call that maybe the chorus? Yeah,
Maybe a motif.
yeah,
I don't know.
motif. Yeah. Where you've got various auto-tune kind of pitches going on. Sounds amazing. Sounds
Thank
really cool.
you.
How did you do that?
I mentioned last month that I discovered the pitch shifter. And last time I automated it, right? So in my melody and also my vocals had like segments that went up like wah or down. And now I was like, wait, can't I just pitch the entire thing up and down? So what I did, I recorded 3 lines and it was literally just me being very demotivated in front of my mic doing like, not even trying, and then just pitched it up by like an octave or a fifth or whatever I wanted, and then added auto-tune. And that's what it happens.
It's amazing what a computer can do, right? It can turn a kind of off-pitch, kind of demotivated you into something that sounds really cool.
Yeah, and also what I did and what I always do with autotune, I sang some sort of notes and I then told the system to not use them. So I'm like, you have to shift it to other notes. So I limited him very strongly. Yeah. I told him, you can only use 4 notes. Like in Western music, we have 12 notes. Yeah. Use 4. And I didn't give him the 3.
And that gives you those kind of big jumps, right? Which is kind of classic auto-tune.
That's where you can really hear the effect. Yeah. And that's something that really works for me. Yeah.
One thing I also noticed about your song that I wasn't expecting is that it's pretty slow for a hip hop song.
It's very slow.
Yeah.
86 BPM.
86 BPM, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's slow, but it's still got a nice kind of slow rhythm to it, right? I was grooving along with it, despite it not being very fast. Yeah. Is that kind of a common thing with cloud rap?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, cloud rap is a very broad thing. So cloud rap, without going into history again, is basically a term applied to all those kind of DIY hip hop artists in the last 10 years, right? So people who discovered SoundCloud and realized they can just upload whatever they want. And of course it can be very broad, but there's a general trend towards slow, ethereal, and kind of atmospheric music, I guess you can say. And yeah, so I guess a trend towards being slow is in the music.
But it sounds modern, the song that you've done. It really sounds modern. Like, I could imagine that being in the kind of Spotify playlists for cloud rap, for example. Or,
hopefully, I mean, the Spotify playlist, cloud rap is a very a minor genre, so maybe.
Okay.
It could never make it to the real hip hop charts. Let's be clear.
I think if either of us ever made any sort of charts, we'd be very happy.
That would be surprising to everyone involved.
How did you write the lyrics?
Oh, that was amazing. So I mentioned before that I went to YouTube for some inspiration. You always did that, and I was always, I don't know. I never really thought of it, didn't do it all that much. So now I gave it a try. And there's not much on cloud rap. So I watched whatever I could find. There was a German documentary thing, like also very short, 10 minutes, of interviews with 2 main artists, one from Vienna, which was my main influence. And they actually asked him the same thing. How do you write lyrics? And he said, well, honestly, if it takes more than 10 minutes, I'm already overthinking it. So I just get it done. I was like, good, easy. I don't have time anyway. So here we go. So I just thought of a story. So I was like, okay, it should probably just be a diss track of Boris Johnson. Mm-hmm. And I created a character. So, okay, who is singing this? So I brought El Patron back from my reggaeton song. He's now a Serbian, I assume, drug dealer / rapper from Vienna. And just tried to get into the character and tell a story. So I got to the mic, had the beat done, tried some things out, and basically I only recorded it twice and kept bits and pieces here and there. And I didn't change much. I did change some lyrics after that when I actually listened to all of it, and I was like, it doesn't make perfect sense. But it's mainly kind of a, how do you call that, when a stream of consciousness thing, right? Okay,
yeah. Mainly. Yeah, you just went and flowed with it.
For 90% of that, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't really think it through.
Okay, which strikes me as unusual for a hip hop song, because when you think of rapping, when I think of the great rappers, they seem to put a lot of effort into their lyrics, right? But it sounds like obviously in certain genres, kind of, it's more about the sounds, perhaps.
It's also, I guess, a demographic thing. So when your average hip hop, especially traditionally, was a black American in his 20s, probably not from the highest social class, let's say. So there was a certain thing there, and they are the opposite. So cloud rappers are usually white, angsty teenagers in their bedroom.
In their bedrooms, yeah, of course, yeah.
So obviously you're going to have very different result. And it's more about sounds and feeling. I think it's about feeling.
Yeah. There's a feeling in that song, really. I could really feel the
Good, I'm glad. I'm really glad.
What did you find hardest?
It was really hard working with, not really hard, but it was hardest working with the samples this time. So I got your sample, and I also got a drum sample because can't be asked to write a...
Where did you find the drum sample?
There's a website called Looperman, not sponsored, but do check it out. They got a lot of stuff for free, so it's like user-created content. And I used one of their beats from a reggaeton song already, so I went back there and just looked through their trap beats, found a good one. The problem was, of course, it was not in 86 BPM, of course it wasn't.
Sure.
But it's just a WAV file, so I had to adjust that as well. And just aligning the two and finding the right tempo for both of them to work and not sound weird. That probably took me longest, and with longest I mean 30 minutes, because I really did not have to spend much time on this, luckily. But because I was happy with the result at some point, I was like, all right,
yeah,
there we are.
Why overthink it? Why overdo it? How long do you reckon you spent on this in total? Do you have any kind of idea?
5 hours, maybe,
5 hours,
including
yeah.
everything. So I'd say writing the song, maybe half an hour, if you include thinking what story I want to tell, what character. So that was the main thing. So like, who am I? What am I talking about? Then, as mentioned, maybe 5 or 10 minutes on the lyrics, so half an hour. And I didn't have to write the music because I just used your loop. It took me a bit of time to figure out the bass.
You let me do all the work for you.
Exactly, of course I do. I mean, I'm not stupid. So I did that, and from there it was quite a smooth process. It was nice. So it was a lot of playing around, really. All the main elements were there very early on, and then I could just add all the melodies, all the auto-tune, work on my voice, how much reverb I want, in what places. I ended up even doubling the entire thing in the background very quietly and adding more autotune there and stuff like that. So it's a lot of experimentation, but I would say not more than 5 hours, yeah.
Okay.
Which I'm happy with.
Is that shorter than your average?
Much.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about you. I mean, what do you reckon is your average?
It totally depends on the song genre, I would say, the song type. Average, you're probably looking around about 10 hours at least.
I would think the same, yeah. I would say 10 is probably my average.
Yeah.
Because if you have to write an entire song, you have to write a chord progression, you have to think of a beat, you have to think of lyrics, you have to think of all the elements.
And you have to get it wrong, and then you have to change it.
Exactly, yeah, all these things. Using a loop, in that case your song, and using a pre-made beat, just having to align them, and once that's done, it's done.
Saves so much time.
And then you just have to add some bass here, add some vocals there. It's so much easier. It really saves a lot of time.
So maybe for our listeners, a cloud rap song is a good song to try as your first style of song.
I would absolutely say that.
Yeah.
I can encourage anyone, go out there, be a cloud rapper. I think the scene is kind of waning, so they need some new people coming in anyway. But anyone who wants to hear more of that, Jung Hoon, I can really recommend. He was the Viennese artist that most inspired me. So.
I'm sure he would be on your part of the playlist that we release later on.
On Spotify, you can find out all about that at the end of the episode. Yes. All right then, so that's all about my song for this month. Let's move to yours. Actually, I usually always ask you for the title, but I'm not going to do this. Tell me what the idea was before we listen to it, just to get into the mood.
Okay, so, and this is probably beneficial for all listeners who don't speak perfect German, like me. The idea of the song, at least the song lyrics, is that I'm really angry at Boris Johnson.
Which you are.
I'm super angry at him. I'm angry at him anyway. But and it was a really nice way to actually vent at Boris Johnson. It's not a kind of a. I'm not pretending to be anybody else like you did, right? You pretended to be, you are El Patron. There's no pretending.
Well, it's a different El Patron, though. It's
your
character.
alter ego.
It's my alter ego.
But
I have many.
He takes different roles.
Yeah.
I was simply a British citizen being extremely angry at Boris Johnson in German.
Yeah, because that's what British citizens do. When they get angry, they rap in German. So let's listen in and see what that is all about.
I was in a hospital the other night where I think there were actually a few coronavirus patients, and I shook hands with everybody.
Hey Boris, wie geht's dir, Bruder? Hab gehört, du hast dich angesteckt, aber im Endeffekt hast du keinen Respekt. Sprichst nicht unseren Dialekt mit deinem Eden-Intellekt. Die ganze Welt hat die Kurve abgeflacht. Deine Buddies haben gelacht in Number 10 und an der Macht. Die Menschen werden aussortiert und du hast nicht kapiert. Nach dem Brexit sind wir alle schon demotiviert. Verdammt, viele Leute haben die Jobs verloren. Und da frage ich mich, hast du Watte in den Ohren? Du hast zugeschaut, hast doch nichts getan. Du bist ein blonder Affe, hey, ohne Masterplan. Für uns bist du nur noch ein gruseliger Clown. Jonglierst mit unserem Leben und wir sind im Lockdown. Aber hey, das ist dir scheißegal. Du hältst dich für royal, du unser großer General. Die Regeln für uns gelten nicht für euch. Dieses Land und seine Menschen sind ja doch nur Spielzeug. Wickelst dich nur feste in dein Hermelinfell. Die Zahlen sind wie deine Dummheit exponentiell.
It's perfectly true that I have had some drugs.
Welche Drogen nimmst du, Bruder?
Go about business as usual.
Es gibt kein Business.
We are now seeing a second wave coming in.
Die zweite Welle.
I have a thing where I make models of buses.
Indem du nichts sagst, sagst du doch so viel. Mit nem Virus kannst du nicht verhandeln. No deal. Brexit, der Austritt, dein Fehltritt, nur Bullshit. Besser aber wär für alle nur dein Rücktritt. In deinem Königreich ist nur der Königreich. Du bist Volksvertreter, aber die sind alle gleich. Es gibt Licht im Tunnel, wir hoffen es wird heller. England wird schon überflutet von der zweiten Welle. Du denkst, du bist ein Held, so eine Art Gorbatschow. Schwing dich auf dein Boris-Bike und fuck off.
What an ending to a song.
A bit of English, actually, at the end there.
What a prime. Yeah, it's great. So,
Let's just probably got that part if they didn't get any other part of it.
and would you say that close to 95% of the meaning of your song is basically encapsulated there?
Yes.
Good.
99%.
So everyone got the message then. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It is incredibly aggressive. I can really... I don't know. I mean, I don't want to annoy our listeners with too much German words or anything. I think the sound is super aggressive, but you're still way too polite for what it could be because you're still English. So if
It's impossible for me to be anything other than
if
just
Bushido
polite.
did that,
Yeah.
he would never say something like "Hast du Watte in den Ohren?" Like it's like we have cotton in your ears. I mean, come on. That would be a lot rougher. But the style is ridiculously aggressive. And I do appreciate a little bit of auto-tune in there every now and then.
Yeah, because it's as we saw with your song, you're new school, I would say. I'm old school for a change. And that, I feel that the beat was old school, the rhythm was old school, and that the auto-tune is not old school,
Yeah.
which is interesting, right? So maybe I've made a new genre.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Old new school.
Old new school. Yeah.
Something. Yeah, that was what I wanted to say. Next, basically, it's very reminiscent of the gangster rap era. Not so much in Germany, but in the US, really. It really reminds me of Dr. Dre beats and maybe like
50 Cent,
or
yeah.
something. Yeah, you know. But especially the beats, super Dr. Dre, if that is something you can say.
And I guess that's my Englishness coming through, right? Because that's what I heard all the time when I was growing up. That's hip hop to me, right?
Yeah.
So it was very hard for me to move anywhere away from that because that's what hip hop is to me.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you can really tell. And one more influence I can really hear is this YouTube series called Epic Rap Battles of History.
Oh, yes.
Especially at the end
Yep.
of phrases.
Yep.
The fuck off at the end
Exactly.
and the no deal.
Yeah.
That's classic. And I half imagine in my mind this kind of outro of the YouTube videos right after this. Like, who won? Who's next? You decide.
I won. Boris will never win.
Boris will never
Never
win.
win.
I mean, probably he's going to... No, let's not talk about
Yeah,
that.
let's talk about the next election.
So we already talked about the samples a little bit. So as I mentioned, I think they're really quite old school. How did you find samples, and what did you look for in your samples? So you had several ones, right? So
So my beat is not a sample, number one. My beat I kind of half made with the help of Logic, the program that I use to make music. But for the kind of melodic elements, I used a website called Splice.
Heard of it?
Yeah, and you've got to pay for it. It's not free. You pay it. It's like a subscription, and I think it's a few dollars a month, and you get a certain amount of credits that you can use to download samples. And I have to say the quality of the samples is outstanding.
And that includes everything from instrumental to vocal to
Vocals,
drums
to FX as well.
Nice.
Yeah, one shots. So your classic boosh hit.
Not sponsored, by the way.
No, but we would
But we're
love
open.
to be sponsored by you.
We're open. Call us.
Yeah. If there are any Splice employees listening, we would love to be sponsored by you, because it's really, really cool. And you can search by genre. You can search. What I found so useful was searching by key, key and tempo. So I chose my key, and then I just searched for samples in that key and roughly at that tempo, and that helped so much.
Sure.
And then what I'm quite proud of is there's a few elements of the song which I actually played myself.
Oh,
So there's a kalimba in there. The
Again?
dung, dung, dung is me playing the kalimba.
you like the kalimbas?
I love the kalimba.
Yeah.
I've made an appearance in reggaeton and hip hop are obviously closely related because we're using everything from
Yeah,
reggaeton
apparently
in
so.
this.
Right, everything.
Yeah.
Both of our songs
Yeah.
independently.
Yeah, so I manually played that in, and I thought it gave it a nice little kind of 50 Cent-ish edge
I think
to
so.
it.
Yeah. And Dr. Dre beat basically. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
So Splice was where I found my loops. And I just searched for hip hop, and then obviously it takes a long time to actually sit and listen to all of them and find ones that work. Actually, funny story. I started this song by trying to sample a Motown song.
Oh, which one?
It's a song that none of you would have heard of.
Oh, okay.
Because it was never really released. I found it on archive.org, which is the US kind of copyright-free
Yeah.
library.
Public.
It's all publicly
domain.
available and copyright-free. And it was some band from the 60s who
Amazing.
came up with a really cool song that I found. Again, it took me ages to find it, called You Talk Too Much. And I was like, well, that's perfect for Boris Johnson. And I wanted to sample that, but it just didn't quite work with the beat. It was a bit of a shame.
So we come back to my problem as well.
Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
and also that's a very particular type of hip hop as well, isn't it? That's more towards kind of Kanye West, I would say, when you sample kind of older, usually Motown songs, actually.
Sure, but also, in the 80s, that was all they did, right? So they were, or in the late 70s, they were sampling disco songs.
True.
And stuff,
Yeah, they
right?
sampled disco songs. Exactly
Yeah,
right.
that's
yeah.
where it started.
And that's where I started as well. And then I just gave up.
Yeah. I can see.
Yeah.
I can see that.
But
Fair.
maybe I'll use that in another genre. Who knows? I found the song.
It's a good discovery. I mean, it's a good discovery.
and it was really fun speeding it up and changing the pitch and stuff. It just didn't work with this song, unfortunately.
So how many samples did you end up using? Different ones? I realize that listening to the song, the backdrop kind of changes ever so often.
Actually, it's only two.
Only two? Oh, okay.
Only
You're going
two.
back and forth.
Yeah, sorry, three. There's the intro sample, where I also used the vinyl plugin that we've discussed in previous episodes, where it kind of does the kind of wind down the.
Great.
That's from the vinyl plugin. Great. So there's that loop. Then there's the one that goes behind all of the verses, and then there's the one that I use in the kind of the breakdowns, the very bass heavy one.
Yeah. All
So
right.
3 in total. Actually, it's not that many.
Not that many. Yeah, it feels like a lot more actually, because really it feels like it's ever changing. You're going from one section of the song to the next, and it always feels fresh. So that's I think well done. So yeah, only 3.
And it's yet another song I had to do in a different language to my mother tongue.
Well, I mean, in general, now we
The
hit
Spanish, Italian, German, and English so far.
So we've got 4 languages in this first season only. I mean, what the hell is going to come up? I mean, already people have submitted genres like Afro pop, which we have to get well into before we even put it to the poll.
Yeah.
So you might hear us. No, I'm not going to do Swahili. That's not going to happen. But who knows? Overall, now I guess one challenge you already talked about, not being able to work with the one loop that you originally wanted. What did you spend most of the time on, let's say?
Lyrics. So
Lyrics.
it's the opposite to you, lyrics. And I have to again thank my wonderful fiancée Nicole for her assistance in this as the native German speaking part of the relationship.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki.
Yeah, and she's actually sat right next to us here because she's
hi.
part of the band. Hi.
That's our singer. Isn't that promising?
Yeah.
Much better.
Yeah, so Nikki helped me a lot with the lyrics because I would come up with some ideas. The German rhyming dictionary was also very helpful as well.
Yeah,
so using that, but then I would come up with a rhyme and I would think, oh, this is amazing. This is sounding great. And then I'd show Nicole and she'd be like, nah, doesn't make any sense. Really sorry. It does rhyme technically, but makes no sense. So that was hard for me. And obviously, there's a lot more lyrics in my song than yours, right?
Yeah, way more.
Yeah,
I have barely any lyrics.
Yeah, which was tough because we had to write them in a short amount of time. Actually, this is a short amount of time than usual.
The last time we recorded, I'm actually going to open my calendar now. It's not long ago.
3 weeks ago, probably, yeah.
3 weeks ago, almost exactly 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't a long time.
Wasn't long to do this, so there was quite a lot of pressure on the lyrics, and so we wrote them in very strange places. Whilst walking to and from the tram, whilst in the underground,
just on your phone, kind of typing away.
Yeah, I've got loads of lyrics on my phone.
Yeah.
So I found that the hardest. The beat and the music came very quickly, actually.
But I think that's a good sign. That's what all the hip-hoppers, rappers I saw in those documentaries said. They always have notes on their phone.
Yeah.
That's what they apparently do. And that's how most hip-hop tracks are or lyrics are created on the go.
Yeah.
So that's a good start, I mean,
sure. Yeah.
It's pretty decent.
Top tip from me is always keep lyrics on your phone because I wrote them every now and again, and then I would come back and show Nikki, or we would write them together, and then we would somehow use bits and pieces of all of them to come up with the lyrics.
Exactly. I mean, we did it here again, right? A little bit of an excursion here, but the day before yesterday, we started writing a new song here with the band, and some of us had some pieces of lyrics lying around. Julia had some pieces, and we just incorporated them all together, And what I also do, I mean, usually I don't write hip hop, right? So I have a hook library, right, where I just write down hook ideas because usually when I write stuff, it's, let's face it, probably country or maybe pop or rock. So hooks are a big deal, and so these one-liners, anything you write down, you can always use it again, or at least if you have a library, some of that will always be useful.
Yep. Top tip, really do that, listeners. If you want to write songs, keep writing things down. And it's always things that just pop into your head randomly, right? Or that you hear someone say. Someone
says to you, or you hear on the street.
It's fantastic. Another thing that I found very tricky, by the way, was actually just getting into the genre, generally. Because it's massive, huge. And I have a few people to thank for this as well. Florentin in particular, he sent me even a playlist of kind of classic German hip-hop songs, which was really helpful because I didn't know where to start. Like, I usually start on Spotify, I guess, and just search for the playlists and see what comes up. My Spotify, by the way, is totally destroyed. I think I've destroyed Spotify's algorithm.
I think we mentioned this before, but our algorithms are complete.
It doesn't know what's going on, because it works on us being predictable, and we are not predictable in any way.
Thanks, listeners.
Yeah. So that was also pretty tough. So I'm very grateful to all the people that helped me along the way.
All right, then. Anything else you want to add, or shall we move on to the big reveal? And also, we have something
special
to announce as well.
Something special, yeah. So I think we can move on to revealing next month's genre and topic. So, first of all, thank you for everyone who's voted over the past 3 weeks. You've had less time to vote than usual, so thank you for all of you for getting your votes in on time. And please keep sending in your genres and topics.
Especially topics. We realized we are slowly but surely running out.
Yeah, the genres have come back in again, right?
Genres, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You mentioned it last time. We got some really good genres since last time. But keep the topics coming.
Yeah, because
that would be helpful.
They always make us giggle, don't they?
They are. I mean, also genres can be quite fun to read.
Yeah.
But topics, they always make us giggle. They usually are humorous and funny, and keep them coming. Whatever you think of, it's a good practice. You want to write down song ideas anyway, so send them over to us.
Exactly, please, and then we can use them.
Steal them from you.
So, Ruff, can you remind the listeners what genres and topics were available this month.
Yes. So we don't know the results yet, as ever, but I've got the poll open. And for the genres, we had 4 options, as usual. Ska, country, indie synth pop, and blues. And
Did we have a winner?
well, let me click. It takes a while.
Yeah. On my slow internet up here in the mountains.
I mean, I'm grateful for your hotspot,
Yeah.
but still, it does take a while. We do have a winner. It's in a way surprising, actually. 35% of the people voted for ska.
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 We're going ska.
We are going ska.
I did not expect that.
I expected country or blues.
Yeah, we're going ska.
We're going
okay.
ska, but it's a guitar genre. I'm happy.
So there's some real instruments in there.
Or some, or it's maybe it's not a guitar genre per se. It's a brass genre, but it's
Brass.
also a guitar
Brass
genre.
with guitar,
or
yeah,
like
yeah. Okay, cool. Ska it is.
Okay.
With which genres?
Wait,
Sorry, which topics?
Let's
Which topics?
first see. It's followed by blues and country, as I was suspected, and indie synth pop. Not particularly popular, with 15%.
Interesting. Okay.
For topics, we had 4, obviously. Your aunt's obsession with croc shoes. Good one. Watching a movie with someone who has read the book first. Climate change, that's a small one.
It's a big one.
And being a Nigerian prince trying to share his wealth. And we have a winner.
Do we have a clear winner?
Not a clear winner.
Oh, interesting.
We don't have a clear winner.
Ah.
We have a winner with 45% of the vote.
One of the biggest, though, I would say, of any win. 45%? It's high.
It's very high.
Yeah.
That's because one of the options had not a single vote.
I see. Okay.
Climate change, not a single vote.
No one cares.
No one cares.
Not important.
It's obviously not a problem.
No,
Obviously
no,
not.
no.
We're not boiling on here.
No.
it's
No.
fine. This is fine.
This is absolutely fine.
Guys, burn your coal. Just go on. It's fine.
On that note, I'll go stick a few more logs on the fire.
put some logs on the fire, and tomorrow we go and get a new SUV, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, then.
Climate change? No one cares.
No
Right.
one cares about climate change. The winner is your aunt's obsession with croc shoes.
Yay! Cool.
So it's a ska punk. No, not a punk song.
non-punk
A
song,
ska
ska.
song. I might write a ska punk song, let's be honest, about your aunt's obsession with croc shoes.
Excellent news.
Pretty
great.
good. It's followed quite close at 40% by being a Nigerian prince trying to share his wealth, which I find phenomenal.
Yeah,
for
what
the
a
record.
great topic that was.
And then there are some people who like the movie with someone who read the book first, but that's far off third.
Okay. So there we have it. We have our genres for next month. Now, this is normally the part of the podcast where we would say the vote's up for next month, right? And we would say what genres are available from your suggestions. But this is a little different this time.
We are nearing the end of our first season here, which we never talked about.
Yeah.
But here you go.
We're doing this in seasons.
We're doing this in seasons. Every season has 8 episodes. And this is episode 6 already. And you know what time is coming up, Dan?
Christmas time.
Something and wine.
Mistletoe and wine.
Oh, of course.
This is going well.
It's a great start.
So, Christmas is coming.
Christmas,
Winter's coming.
When we are recording this, it's the 25th of September.
Although we are currently surrounded by fog and thunder.
Yes. So, well, fair enough. Let's say Christmas time. It is coming. This is our October episode. November's episode is going to be Ska on the Crocs. So December's episode. What is the plan, Dan? Tell us.
The plan is that the songwriting idiots, Dan and Ralph, are going to join forces.
The world is going to collapse.
We're going to join forces, and we're going to write a Christmas song
but not
together.
But not any Christmas song.
Not just any Christmas song, because you guys are going to get involved as well, because we need to write our Christmas song about something Christmas related. And so we've come up with 4 Christmas ideas that you can vote for, and we will write our Christmas song about what you decide. So the 4 Christmas topics that you can vote on are, number 1, putting on loads of weight at Christmas. Number 2, our 12 Days of Christmas. There's the famous song, The 12 Days of Christmas.
Yeah.
We will make our own.
What would we do in our 12 Days of Christmas?
Mostly shopping, I think. Shopping and eating and drinking.
1 day of ordering stuff on Amazon and 11 days of drinking.
Number 3. Speaking of drinking.
Which we do a lot around here.
Number 3. Getting absolutely hammered the night before Christmas.
Happened to me more than
Great
once.
tradition.
Oh.
And a tradition that I was never aware of until I hit about 18, 19,
Yeah.
20.
So-
And then it just became every single Christmas Eve for us, right?
Yeah.
Different in Austria and Germany. You just get
Was it the same
smashed
for
with-
you? We always, obviously, we went to go study in whatever, Vienna, somewhere else. And when we got back, of course, first the 24th, the big day or the big night. And everyone back from school would want to meet up on the 23rd. And
Absolutely.
every damn year you get hammered.
Absolutely right.
And throwing up on Christmas Eve is not pleasant. Happened more than once.
You see your turkey twice. So that was number 3, getting hammered the night before Christmas. And number 4 is your Christmas tree burning down the house. And this is a particular Austrian tradition, which is that you have very often real candles on your trees, which I think is insane. Absolutely insane.
Hey.
You're putting something it's a tree.
It's
going to catch
old-timey.
fire.
Christmas
and it has
is-
caught fire.
Christmas is old time. This should be done. This is perfect. It's perfectly fine. And it's great for the climate.
Which no one cares about.
No one.
Which
we established that.
So, putting on loads of weight at Christmas, our 12 days of Christmas, getting hammered the night before Christmas, and your Christmas tree burning down the house.
And you can go to songwritingidiots.com/vote to cast your vote now and enjoy whatever we come up with collectively in December for Christmas time. And we should probably talk about this season idea. We will be back with season 2 in spring of 2021. So
Exactly.
there's going to be a short break. You will hear more about this in the months to come.
Please follow the podcast wherever you listen, and reach out to us and follow us on Instagram, where we'll be posting some shots of this episode and our band retreat and the funky new t-shirts that we've made.
Whenever we can be asked.
If you'd like to listen to the songs that Ralph and I were listening to inspire us for our German hip-hop songs, you can listen to our Spotify playlists, the links for which are in the episode show notes.
And you can, of course, also download our songs, as all the other songs we've created so far, on our website. That's songwritingidiots.com/songs.
Great. So with that, we say goodbye, and we look forward to seeing you again next month for our ska songs about our aunts and crocs. Going to be interesting.
That's the least we can say, yes. All right, then. So, yeah.
Until
See you
then,
then.
see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.